The Turtle Island project really began in South Dakota. I started going down there a number of years ago through a class that I took as a graduate student at Catholic Theological Union when I was studying for my doctorate at Chicago Theological Seminary. And through those experiences of going to the Rosebud and the Pine Ridge reservations in South Dakota, I got to know a little bit about what the reality of life was for people the Lakota people who later became my friends.
The Turtle Island Project exists to provide opportunities and venues by which the voices of First Nations people can be heard. I think one of the consequences of racism against First Nations people has been the silencing of their voices and the eagerness of Euro-Americans to speak for them, robbing them of their own freedom of speech that we value so much. As a result, much of the Native American experience has been filtered through the lenses of a foreign culture that not only does not have the right to speak for them, but also lacks the ability to speak to the most fundamental realities of Native experience. Perhaps this problem was best expressed by the great Native American author Vine Deloria Jr. in the title of his marvelous book, We Talk, You Listen. It is our hope that by listening to the voices of First Nations people, we can begin a dialogue in which new forms of spirituality will begin to emerge. A new understanding of God based on the place that we all inhabit, North America, or Turtle Island, as it is referred to in many Native American creation stories.
Turtle Island Project is also interested in creating what one might call a North American theology. And that is a theology that is not only a study of God, an understanding of God from the point of view of Western European peoples, people like me whose grandmothers and grandfathers, great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers migrated here many years ago and are indeed buried in this place that we call North America, that the indigenous peoples of this country called Turtle Island. And so it's not just my grandparents that are buried here, but also generations of the indigenous peoples. And that's what we have in common with one another. We share space. And Turtle Island Project is interested in examining the theological implications of what that means. To really, for I think the first time in our own history of this country, listen to the voice of Native American peoples.
It is our belief that such a dialogue can contribute to the betterment of both communities and is a conversation that is long overdue. In order to facilitate this conversation, all regional and national conferences will include a roundtable discussion preceding the event. Native Americans will be invited to come and speak freely of the issues concerning their various communities. The conferences themselves will be free of charge to all Native American peoples in honor of their nations and in the hope that this will be able to increase their participation. Vine Deloria was, I think, in many ways the most articulate spokesperson for Native American concerns in this country for the last 20 years. If I were to encapsulate his thought, I think that Vine Deloria wanted to remind the Euro-American community that they have yet to listen to what Native Americans have to say, either in terms of the environment, in terms of their own struggles as a people. I think that one of the great contributions that Vine Deloria made to American culture is that he articulated the difference between Native American spirituality and Christian spirituality in a very profound and fundamental way. In that he constantly reminded us that Native American spirituality is based upon spatial understandings of God, while Christianity is based upon temporal understandings of God. The spatial metaphors for God has to do with the revelation of the divine life in a particular place, at this mountain, at this stream, at this time, while temporal metaphors for God has to do with the idea, of course, of time. That once upon a time there was a great revelation of God, say 2,000 years ago for the Christian religion in Christ, and that since that time there have been no new revelations. So Christianity was never a religion that was dependent upon a place, and that's quite different than a religion, as so many religions or spiritualities that we find in Native American or indigenous culture, which is always tied to a place, a religion of place, as opposed to a religion of space. The place being the place of the revelation of God. That, I was out riding on my pony, and, we saw this beautiful lake, and we camped there, and I had a revelation of God there. We camped there. It was so beautiful that the spirits came to us that night. Or we looked at this hill, and it was so beautiful that this is the hill that we go to seek our spiritual revelation, our spiritual enlightenment. From the very origins of the Christianity in the creation myths of the Hebrew peoples was this understanding that human beings are a special creation, and that this earth was created for them. And that's quite a different understanding than what Native American peoples have. These birds have been here for thousands and thousands of years. They have to feed themselves, and they've been doing this quite successfully. Now we have made them dependent upon our trash. Now we have made them dependent upon picking through our trash. But with the many different scenarios that we can imagine that will bring about our own self-destruction because of the abuse of nature, we can certainly imagine these birds being here long after we're gone, picking through our own trash.